Hello everyone! Welcome to your Vexaplay. Today we're going to talk about the 1.2 update for Arknights Endfield. There are more and more hints appearing around this patch, and it's already clear that this may be more than just another version update. It could actually become a very important update for the game. Because this isn't only about new characters, but also about story progression, new locations, and noticeable changes to the game's systems. So today, let's break down what we can expect from patch 1.2 and why there's already so much attention around it. Now let's get to the interesting part. If you look at the overall situation, Update 1.2 already feels much stronger than 1.1, and that's probably the most exciting thing about it. While the current version feels more like a transition phase, the next patch already looks like the kind of update where the developers may actually push the game forward in several important directions at once. There's already a lot of discussion around 1.2. Some of it is just player speculation, but in other places, you can already build a pretty clear picture based on the materials we've been shown. So let's just go step by step. First, we'll look at what is already starting to take shape around the update itself, and then we'll move on to the characters most often associated with this version. And if we start with the patch itself, then the main focus seems to be Wuling. Right now, this region feels like the next major point for content development, and that alone already makes version 1.2 look much more interesting, because it doesn't feel like the game is simply moving forward by inertia. It feels more like a transition into a new stage. Judging by the bigger picture, patch 1.2 may bring us new locations, a new outpost, and further development of the factory system. And that already sounds like a serious step forward. Because when an update expands the map, moves the regional story ahead, and also adds changes to the core gameplay systems, it always feels much more significant than a regular patch with just a couple of local additions. What looks especially interesting here is the production side of things. It feels like the factory and base systems may become noticeably more important in the next patch. That means infrastructure development, resource production, and everything connected to that side of the game may gain a whole new level of relevance. And if that happens, then for many players, 1.2 will matter not only because of the banners, but also because the game itself may start to feel deeper in day-to-day gameplay. And honestly, that's one of the strongest points of this upcoming patch, because not every update gives you the feeling that the game is truly expanding. Sometimes a new version is just another version, and sometimes a patch comes out that makes it obvious the developers are moving into a larger phase. And right now, 1.2 really looks like that kind of patch. It's also interesting that the next stage of content seems to be tied much more closely to Wuling itself and everything connected to it. So the update doesn't just work as a bundle of new mechanics, but also as a continuation of the game's overall direction. And that's always a good sign, because the patch starts to feel more complete, as world expansion, as system development, and as forward movement for the story. To put it more simply, that's exactly why 1.2 is drawing so much attention right now. Not because one specific character might appear, but because the update itself looks larger in scale. New zones, a stronger regional focus, possible base upgrades, factory development, and the overall feeling of a much bigger step forward. All of this gives the patch a completely different kind of weight. And now let's move on to the part that is probably the most interesting for most people, the possible characters. At the moment, we still don't have an official confirmed banner lineup. But if you look at how the development of Wuling is being interpreted right now, which names keep appearing in discussions, and which characters are getting the most attention, then the two names that come up most often are Zhuang Fangyi and Mi Fu. And out of those two, Zhuang Fangyi currently looks like the most prominent candidate. She fits very well into the overall context of the region, she already carries weight in the lore, and overall she feels like exactly the kind of character it would make sense to release in a major patch if the developers really want to make the update highly discussed. So if we go by the overall impression of the situation, Zhuang Fangyi currently looks like the main candidate for the central banner of version 1.2. That doesn't mean she has already been officially confirmed, but among the characters most often associated with this update, she looks the most convincing right now. The level of interest around her is also very high, and that's not surprising. Usually, these are exactly the kinds of characters that become the foundation of strong patches. a recognizable image, importance to the region, a solid connection to the story, and already established community interest. Zhuang Fangyi seems to have all of that right now. The second name that regularly appears alongside 1.2 is Mi Fu. She is also mentioned very often whenever people talk about the next update. But the situation here feels a little less certain. If Zhuang Fangyi is seen as almost the main candidate, then Mi Fu feels more like the next likely step. Still, Mi Fu definitely shouldn't be ignored. Based on the overall impression, she remains the second most discussed option for this patch. And if the developers really want to make the update feel rich in terms of characters, then her appearance in 1.2 would make a lot of sense. It also feels possible that if Mi Fu does appear in this version, it may happen closer to the second half of the update. That would be a pretty realistic scenario, especially if the patch is meant to feel denser in content and keep player interest stretched across multiple phases. And there's one more detail here that makes things even more interesting. Based on the general presentation and the way 1.2 is being discussed right now, it can't be completely ruled out that the update may include not just two major characters. There is also a chance that along with Zhuang Fangyi and Mi Fu, the patch could feature one more new character. How realistic that really is still hard to say. At that point, we move more into pure speculation. So I wouldn't put too much emphasis on it for now. But the fact that this possibility is being discussed at all already makes 1.2 look even more intriguing. So if we sum things up for the character side, the current picture looks something like this. Zhuang Fangyi is the main candidate for the central banner. Mi Fu is the second most likely and most discussed option, and beyond that, the patch may theoretically also include one additional character. And now let's move on to another important point, the release timing. We still don't have an official release date for version 1.2, but if we go by the current length of 1.1, then it would make sense to expect the next update sometime around mid-April, which means there probably isn't that much time left until it arrives. And this is where the most practical question for players begins. Is it worth investing heavily into the current version, for example into Tang Tang or other 1.1 characters, or would it be smarter to start saving for whatever may arrive in 1.2? And of course, that depends on how you personally approach the game. If you play more freely and pull depending on the moment, that's one thing. But if you're free to play, spend very little, or just like planning your resources in advance, then 1.2 already looks like the kind of patch that may be worth preparing for. Personally, that's exactly how it feels to me right now. If 1.1 comes across as a transition version, then 1.2 already looks like an update that could be much stronger in several areas at once. In overall scale, in story progression, in the importance of Wuling, and in the characters most often expected there. So the level of attention around it right now makes complete sense, and if the upcoming hints do end up being confirmed, then the next patch may become one of the most talked about stages for Arknights Endfield in quite a while. And that's basically it. This was the full breakdown of what can already be pieced together around version 1.2 for Arknights Endfield. If more details, more hints, or something more concrete about the banners appears later on, then it'll make sense to do another dedicated breakdown closer to release. That's all from me. Thanks for watching. If you found the video helpful, be sure to support it. And I'll see you again very soon in the next videos. Bye, everyone!